I am so excited for Vandana Shiva to be here in Kings County and to be spending the day with us all throughout the Valley area, mostly in Wolfville and at Horton High School, but sharing with us the importance of taking care of our earth and taking care of the people who are feeding us, and taking care of ensuring that we have a seed supply into the future that we as small communities around the world have ownership over. So I'm really excited to learn from her and to hear about how she's doing her work and mobilizing, and maybe even getting some major inspiration from her on how we can continue to move forward and support the great things she does, but also the great things that are happening in our own community.
I'll be homeward bound again.
I started Navdanya 25 years ago. It's exactly 25 years ago. When I realized what the giant corporations were planning, which was patenting of life forms and seeds, and to do that they had to do genetic engineering. So they had to buy up the smaller seed companies and create laws that would prevent people having their own seeds, laws like intellectual property laws, etc. And I was very fortunate to be introduced to this very early in the day. I started to work with farmers to do organic farming, and then to build food systems that were both sustainable and fair and under their control. And of course we are in a coffee roastery that tells the figures so clearly. I remember I had to give the big address at 10 years after the Earth Summit in Johannesburg. And at that point, the figures were that the profits of big trade had jumped from 40 billion to 70 billion, and the incomes of the producers had dropped from 9 billion to 5 billion. And that is part of what we see throughout the agriculture system. The other day I had a big debate with somebody who's supposedly knowledgeable, and he said, "Oh, farmers are doing very well, you don't have to work anymore, Vandana, because food prices are rising." I said, "Food prices are rising, but the farmer's price is falling." And that polarization is where all the super profits get harvested. And what, we have 5 seed companies trying to control all the seed supply of the world, 5 grain trading giants trying to control the trade of the world, 5 processors trying to control the processing, and 5 retailers trying to be the only shops in town, but they're not even shops. You come into a place like this, you feel happy. I have never entered a Walmart to experience how unhappy I would be. And I'm sure I'd be very happy. We're fighting to keep them out of India. Yes. India's a land of, they bring vegetables to your doorstep, on a little pushcart. And you get up in the morning hearing the voice of the vendor saying tomatoes, potatoes, cabbage, karela, and you step out of your balcony and you say, "Can you bring this up?" And they bring it up. You don't even have to have cash because they're willing to wait tomorrow because it's a relationship. Wow. And that's what we're really trying to do in Navdanya. To build relationships with the earth, to build relationships within community, and to build relationships between those who produce food and those who eat food. In these 25 years, we've created 66 community seed banks to defend seed as a commons. Because Monsanto would like us to believe that it's their property, and we should pay them royalties. And in the process, they're extracting such high royalties from farmers that farmers are getting into debt. And in India, 250,000 farmers have committed suicide because of indebtedness. Most of them in the cotton area, which Monsanto now controls. When I see our farmers commit suicide, or when I see good things turn into rocks, because that's what everything's becoming under the new breeding system, where it's not what you eat that matters, but it's how long it'll sit on a ship or on a shelf that breeding is being done for. I I'm in a country where food still has taste, and I see the change when suddenly your watermelons don't have taste, your oranges don't have taste because they've been replaced for processing industry and long distance trains. So we can actually see the disappearance of seed and the disappearance of food forever. And I think it's our duty to ourselves and future generations to both, again, you know, it's in your, I saw it outside, you know, our duty to the planet to protect the diversity, our duty to the planet to protect the soil and the seed, the living seed, and it's our duty to future generations to hand over what we've received. So we have a very simple pledge in Navdanya. People become a member of Navdanya by only taking this pledge. We've received this beautiful diversity and abundance from nature and our ancestors. And it's our duty to pass it on for the future, so we will care for it, we will protect it, and most importantly, because we are from Gandhi's land, where when the British said only we will make salt, you can't make salt, Gandhi said, but we need it for our survival, nature gives it for free. He walked to the sea, picked up the salt, and he said, we will not obey your salt laws. And so we say, we will not obey your patent laws. How can you say you created seed and life on earth? You didn't. Yeah. We will defend it in its freedom. So we practice something called a seed satyagraha, because that was the salt satyagraha. And satyagraha is a very beautiful word. It means the fight for truth. Because in food and agriculture today, we are being ruled by lies. The lie of cheap food, when very high price has been paid for it. The lie of efficiency. 10 units of energy going to produce 1 unit of food, that's not efficient. The lie of farmers doing better. And the lie of this being improved, when all the time our systems get more and more degraded and things lose their quality, their taste, their health, their nutrition. I know the powers that would like to make profits by destroying the earth and people's lives and livelihoods are very strong, and they're very concentrated, and they have all the support of governments, because governments are no more democratic governments. Governments are what I call a corporate state. Yeah? They've been totally taken over to write rules and policies that work for the big players and undermine ordinary communities, ordinary citizens. And I just feel it's a new, we live in a new period of a new kind of more subtle dictatorship. It's an economic dictatorship. And I think every generation has its duties to defend freedom, to love freedom, and to do their bit to create freedom. So one of my new slogans is this: we live in a period with a very heavy ecological destruction, a very heavy ecological footprint, and we've got to reduce our footprint, but we've got to increase our handprint by doing more creative work, more work in collaboration, and we've to enlarge our heart print. And you did that when you greeted me, and I want to give that back to you. You know, initially when I started the work, I did it just in community, but it meant it was in remote areas, and people have internalized the dominant myths so well, like cash crop monocultures bring more prosperity, or global trade creates better market opportunities, etc., or that old seeds have no value. Yeah? I realized at a certain point, I think it was 94, that we needed a demonstration farm. Not just the network, we still have the network of farmers, but also a demonstration farm. And at the demonstration farm, and we've taken every step because of the imperative of what needed to be done. First is a seed bank. The second, of course, is as we realized that there needed to be places where people can come and learn ecological farming. So we do ecological production, organic production, and I think it's a lot of issues of semantics to divide the various ecological streams, because ultimately it's about working on ecological principles. You could do it through permaculture, you could do it through biodynamic, you could do it in various ways. And most traditional agriculture was based on ecological principles. Very often when someone bright and smart will come and say, oh, start the system for rice intensification that came out of Madagascar. And the older workshop and the older women will say, but we used to do exactly this. So the extension people came and said, don't, Yeah. Everything we try and think, people think it's a new knowledge. It's been there, buried. And it's a question of bringing it out. We've actually celebrated 10 years of a school, which started out as, we called it the School of the Sea, Beach Vidyapith. But as the demands grow wider, bigger, we now call it the Earth University. Because I think universities are working too hard for Monsanto. And we need other learning centers, more learning centers. Today's universities were tiny places that tried to counter the dead end of the scholastic route, where there was total control over learning. By the church, which was the landlord, the church was the knowledge lord, the church was everything then. And now Monsanto is everything, and Gargill is everything. And, when I gave my convocation speech at the honorary doctorate, it was very interesting because I knew I was at the heart of a university that's controlled by these big agribusiness and Monsanto. And later the president thanked me very hard and said, we consciously called you because we think we are losing our public spirit. And we need to remember that a public university is for the public good. And while they're still trying to learn it, I think we can create smaller centers to make learning too a common activity, a cooperative activity. We're going to offer from this year onwards a 1-month course. We normally do short courses of 1 week or 2 weeks, but we had a lot of demand to do a 1-month course. And it came out jokingly from Satish Kumar, who comes and teaches a Gandhi course every year. And he said, why don't you do an A to Z of organic farming? And we realized we need to, because for the government, organic farming is giving a subsidy for a vermicompost pit, full stop. Nothing after that. And if you can be big and make tons and tons of vermicompost, you get a bigger subsidy. And then you can mix your vermicompost with the waste from a sugar factory and something else. And then everyone wonders why the compost didn't do well. So for us, the organic option is about the living soil, the living seed, living food, and living communities. Yeah, those are the four, where everything is being killed. Yeah, you're getting dead seed, dead soil, dead food, and dead communities. For example, India was deeply aware of being an agrarian society. And yet, both the reality, I mentioned the farm suicides, but behind it is huge dispossession, very, very large kind, and an assumption that farmers should disappear. That farmers are a luxury we can't afford. And this is a global assumption. And small farmers everywhere are being seen as the block. Now, years ago, I organized a 500,000 farmers protest against the emerging WTO. It was then the GATT, the European round of GATT. And I had invited people from around the world, including, at that point, the late José Lutzenberger, who used to be the the environment minister of Brazil. He had come out of BASF. He used to be the head of BASF Brazil. And at a certain point, he realized what he was doing, selling pesticides, and became the leading agroecologist of Brazil. And everyone who's an agroecologist has learned from him. And he's sitting with this ocean of 500,000 farmers in front of him. And he turns around to me and he says, now I know why they're scared of the small farmer. Yeah. It's the last reserve of freedom. Because what's a small farmer? A small farmer works with the land, you have your seed, someone needs to eat what you produce, and you can be totally independent. I get a lot of Spanish youth to come and learn at Navdanya. And all they want to learn is how to have an independent survival mechanism, which the land can provide you. And of course, then there's that little middle transition involved about, how do young people get to the land when land itself has become so commodified. And I think that's where innovative thinking needs to shift. All kinds of public support to equipping young people to create another future. So first, everywhere in the world farmers are being pushed off, to everywhere in the world the old system of richness is sitting on an inverted pyramid, I call it. Otherwise, why would we have an Occupy movement in the US? And everyone is condemned to food poverty, even the rich. I say for my country, half our children are being starved to death. Another quarter are being fed to death. With junk food. Junk food has been made the new religion of, packaged food is better than home cooked food. That's the propaganda we are getting. You got it in the 50s and 60s. We're getting it now. So I think the only response then is global solidarity. Because for too long have we, you said everyone going off in different directions. For too long we've been preoccupied with how our particular problem is unique. And then we try and solve it in that unique way. And I think we need to just lift ourselves a little and say, oh my God, we have a common problem worldwide. Disappearing seed, disappearing farmers, difficulty to get affordable good food. Why should healthy eating be defined as a luxury for the 1%? Monsanto gives us GM and runs an organic canteen. Doesn't make sense. They don't eat GMOs in their canteen. Because they jolly well know. So that's why the whole issue of a global solidarity around the seed issue, the food issue, food democracy I call it, has become very, very vital. And I don't think it's going to wait for a generation. I mean, two things we started. One, in the tragedy of the farmers' suicide, we realized the widows had nothing, so we started Gardens of Hope. And in cities, exactly the problem that you addressed, that everyone's out of touch. We said we'll start school gardens of hope in the schools. And within a season, children learn about the soil, they learn about the miracle of the seed, and they suddenly realize they can grow tomatoes and eat them. And that is a one-season learning, not one generation learning. So it's really, our learning has to be, I think we have to think through the lifetime of the plant and not the lifetime of our stupidities. Because we're very capable of getting really dumbed down as human beings. I often say, how many species are there that deliberately choose food that will kill them? Most species know how to feed their future generations and eat the right thing. I've been told that animals will totally bypass the GM field and go eat only in the non-GM field. So I think it's a question of shifting where we think from. And I think you talked so beautifully about the land. And Aldo Leopold, Wendell Berry have repeatedly taught us, we have to think through the land. I think everyone's kind of being pushed into this whole biotech, MBA, IT stream. And beyond a point, outside making lots of money, there's nothing to nourish your soul, nothing to give you inspiration. Because you're just a cog in the machine. And I think that other dream, if you ask me what's the other dream, I think if the dominant food and agriculture system is saying small farmers must disappear, I think the other dream is to say, and everyone can be a gardener. And the small farmer is a garden. And I think, they've managed to industrialize agriculture and our minds. And I think the opening comes through the paradigm and metaphor of the garden. Because I have huge debates with our ministers who keep saying, oh, there are too many farmers in India. There should be only 15%, we are 65%. I said, and what will happen to the remaining 50%? What are you going to do with them? They never have an answer. Because there are no jobs in the cities either. They're wiping off the slums where poor people used to be able to survive. So that, there's no option. It's totally a dead-end option. And they say, oh, but farming is a very boring activity of drudgery, it must go. And I say, and does your wife garden? Yes, gardening is wonderful. I said, well, what's the difference? But the interesting thing is, there isn't a mental block about gardening. Even the rich can have a garden. But the peasant must go.
Yeah.
So we have to redefine the peasant as a gardener.
Yeah.
And so if it's good enough for the rich, then it's good enough for the poor. In the areas where the farmers in India are committing suicide, they are not the ones coming to us. We are going to them. And in the area where the cotton has been taken over by Monsanto totally, and the suicides are highest, we've entered that area. And it's tough, it's not easy, because when you have in every second village 200, 300 suicides like in Punjab, to lift that weight of despair needs a new kind of energy. And I was visiting Punjab widows, and I just saw they were, they're just sitting and waiting because there's nothing left. So I said, start a kitchen garden. Then they made excuses and said, we have no water. I said, but you have a well and you wash your dishes and the water goes out and you could just have it supported, the kitchen garden supported by your kitchen. And I sent 50, I said, just try it. I sent 50 packages, 50 kits of seeds for the kitchen garden. And a month later, I get a request for sending 300 more. Because now it was working. And that's why demonstration is vital. And where farmers have gone too deeply skeptical, we need to say, just put 1 acre under this. And then that 1 acre is the one, I'll give you an example. Northwest India is the one that's really deeply affected by the Green Revolution and chemical addiction. And I sent my colleagues and farmers wouldn't listen. And so we said exactly that, just an acre, even just an acre. And last year, there was this horrible attack of the Uganda virus on wheat. Yeah? And they kept spraying and nothing worked. That 1 acre that had been cultivated organically was standing there smiling. No infestation. The farmers kept running and said it worked. We'll do it on a larger acreage. And that's why the power of demonstration. Most of the farmers who come on their own to us are farmers who've seen that the chemical promise isn't working, or had a water crisis because you can't do chemical farming without water, or third, they are realizing the soil is really losing productivity. And normally it'd be one farmer who wakes up and say, can I come? And what we do, and this is something your model can do also. We set up the schools, so groups of farmers, and these days my team, we're a small team, but every month we are getting 4 to 5 groups of farmers from different parts of the country. And we don't then just say, okay, bye-bye, you've been here, go away. We visit them. And you don't immediately get the full set of skills to be able to do the organic practices, There's always that little additional thing you need to learn, and you learn it over time. So we visit, and I think a network where this is your demonstration, but you maintain the kind of network that Avinash serves right now, and keep going to the farmers too, here. And then of course your whole Just Trade keeps the links with farmers in other parts of the world.